Thank you, everyone. Having been a presenter at the Good Oil Conference a number of years ago, we were reminiscing in the booth area and how big the conference used to be and how many days it went for. And I remember when I presented in 2014, I actually got a musical intro, which was AC/DC's Back in Black. And that was to remind me what my mission was for shareholders, was to put the company in the black. And so we are very much focused on not only pursuing the energy transition, but doing it in such a way that delivers shareholder value. And it's a tough gig right now. We are a public company. This presentation has already been lodged on the ASX. This is our compliance statement. Really in terms of investment highlights, as Martin highlighted, being a fan of carbon storage, we have a world-class project right on the Midwest coast of WA. And in this presentation, we're covering both two facets of that, those holdings we have. One being the Cliffhead Carbon Storage Project, where we have a first mover advantage. But equally, we also hold all of the Commonwealth exploration tenements in the offshore North Perth Basin, which are the mirror image of the onshore. And that's very much where we're focused on that gas fairway in the offshore North Perth Basin to look to replicate the success that Strike, Mineral Resources, Hancock, Mitsui and Beach have delivered already in the onshore. We have an experienced management team. What's enabling us to pursue what we're doing is that we have an existing infrastructure base. And that existing infrastructure base during the transition is, one, expensive to hold and maintain, but it actually delivers significant value in the transition. Reduces the cost of carbon storage on a go-forward basis by 2/3. We are in advanced permitting, as being the very first applicant and the very first recipient of a declaration of storage formation from the Commonwealth government under legislation that's been in place since 2006. And we are engaged with a series of strategic partners to join us in the project development. So our corporate snapshot, our renewed board, with Greg Columbus, who many of you probably know from Clark Energy, joining us as non-executive chairman. Alex Sundich, who probably some of you know as the founder of Bridge Street Capital, and then Natalie Wallace, a very experienced oil and gas commercial person out of Santos. So really, we have three pillars that we're building the company around. One, that development of carbon storage. Two, use that and leverage that carbon storage capacity to develop what we believe is the only blue ammonia project in the world with fully integrated behind-the-meter carbon storage and substantially powered by clean renewable power, allowing us to deliver both low cost and low carbon intensity ammonia for export to a series of Korean partners. As we see it as a carbon-free LNG alternative. And we ultimately then back that up with our prospective material natural gas position in the offshore Perth Basin. So that strategic portfolio, for those of you who have been around for a fair bit of time, we've effectively put back together the holdings that Rock Oil had in the North Perth Basin offshore. The Cliffhead production license, WA31L, then our petroleum exploration tenement, WA481P, which was the old WA287P, which in both of those cases, subject to ultimately the regulatory transfer of all of the Cliffhead production licenses to us, will be the 100% owner-operator. But also then we now have the overlay of the G12 greenhouse gas assessment permit all 100% owned and operated by Pilot. So that first mover advantage in carbon storage is really where we're leading. At the end of the day, we look at carbon storage as a very simple proposition. It's just good industrial hygiene. And we're endeavoring to make it both accessible and affordable. Our entire philosophy about the energy transition is that it will happen much more quickly and to a greater extent, to the extent that it's not associated with a sticker shock. So it's about not picking all projects, it's actually about picking the right projects. And I think that's ultimately what the Cliffhead asset represents in terms of its ability to become a carbon storage operation. So diving into that, these recent numbers, that 1,300 megatons growth to 2050 comes out of a brand new report out of DNV. It is their forward view on the magnitude of carbon capture and storage going forward. Very strong annual growth rate, a significant demand for it as part of the solution to decarbonization. This price forecast, this is right out of Reputex, one of Australia's leading carbon price forecasters. So it's quite a substantial cost that industrial emitters in Australia are going to be forced to pay. So in terms of our natural partners, you can see where we've got an abundance of geologic resource to be able to provide this, but we have pre-existing energy partners in Japan and Korea that have an absence of the ability to do this. And in both Korea and Japan, their national carbon abatement plans have specific goals and targets of between 10 and 13 million tons per annum that they want to reduce emissions by 2030 through carbon sequestration. So Western Australia is extremely well placed to be the regional provider of this solution. We've got the right geology, we've got the right people in the room to be able to do it. So looking at WA in terms of that issue that Martin highlighted, our emissions are growing. However, we can not only manage that, we can provide that supporting resources to help not only ourselves reduce our emissions, but help others. So the Cliffhead Carbon Storage Project has already been recognized by the Global CCS Institute as one of the leading projects in Australia. There are a few that have come before us, both Gorgon and Moomba, but we are aiming to try to be the first operational offshore carbon storage project. So we have that first level of regulatory approval. We've got a substantial resource. We've completed pre-FEED on the project, and we're looking to move to the next stage into FEED and application for the injection license by the middle of next year. So what's the value of that existing infrastructure? The replacement cost, the original installed cost of that infrastructure, this comes right off the PRT returns, the balance, was Aussie $400 million. The replacement cost of that infrastructure today is US $825 million. That's $825 million on a greenfield project that we don't have to spend. And I've sat down and shown to NOPSEMA that we use over 95% of all of the installed infrastructure, onshore and offshore, to service the carbon storage operation. So on a go-forward basis, to develop 72 million tons of storage capacity, which is our stage one capacity, with an annual injection rate of 2.5 million tons per annum, that go-forward CapEx is approximately US $450 million. When you do the simple math, that's $6 a ton US for the CapEx of the project. Our current carbon storage price for ACCUs is in the high 30s Aussie. Now, we do have, of course, the operating costs that we have to wear, specifically for compression. But we believe that we can deliver that all-in cost for storage of approximately between Aussie $20 and $25. So we'll turn to an updated video on the project.
On the mid-west coast of Western Australia, approximately 270 kilometres north of Perth, an exciting new clean energy project is unfolding. ASX-listed Pilot Energy is focused on transforming its existing operations into the Midwest Clean Energy Project to deliver an integrated, cost-competitive, clean energy solution. Through this project, Pilot also aims to be a major contributor to reducing CO2 emissions in Western Australia and assist Australia in meeting its climate targets. This transformation begins with converting the depleted Cliffhead oil field into a world-leading offshore CO2 storage facility. The conversion involves a straightforward repurposing of the existing platform, wells, pipelines, and onshore plant to use the established oil reservoir for permanent CO2 storage. Pilot expects to safely and permanently store more than 2 million tonnes of CO2 emissions annually as early as 2028 and operate for over 25 years, making the project one of the 10 largest CO2 storage projects globally. Located in Australian Commonwealth waters, the Cliffhead Carbon Storage Project has been awarded Australia's first ever declaration to convert an existing offshore oil and gas field into a permanent CO2 storage facility. The declaration follows a rigorous assessment process by the National Offshore Petroleum Titles Administrator, or NOPTA, and is a key condition for many of the project's commercial agreements. It also provides Pilot Energy and its international partners with greater confidence in Australia's carbon storage regulatory regime. Onshore, Pilot will construct a purpose-built CO2 aggregation hub to cater for the new natural gas fields within the Midwest region of WA. These alone are projected to generate over 1 million tonnes of new CO2 emissions from associated gas processing facilities before 2030. The ability to capture and store CO2 emissions from these types of facilities is a proven technology which has been commercially deployed for over 50 years in North America and Europe. Pilot's CO2 hub will be able to capture CO2 emissions from these sources and transport them via pipeline for injection and permanent storage in the Cliffhead offshore reservoir. The CO2 aggregation hub will be able to receive carbon dioxide via pipeline, road tanker, rail, and from dedicated carbon dioxide carrier ships. Pilot also plans to provide an offshore CO2 jettyless ship unloading facility capable of receiving carbon dioxide offshore for direct injection and storage. This offshore facility will enable CO2 from major industrial facilities in southwest Western Australia, as well as from other sites across Australia, to access the Cliffhead Carbon Storage Project as a real-world solution to permanently reduce their CO2 emissions.
So with that, and I'm running a bit short on time, I want to jump into our gas exploration position. So as I mentioned, that permit is WA 481P. It's one of the largest Commonwealth oil and gas exploration permits. We've identified a very large prospect called Leander, which is about 14 kilometers due west of the Cliffhead platform. For those that are familiar with the geologic architecture of the North Perth Basin, you have the Dandaragan Trough in the onshore. That then rises to the west to the Beagle Ridge, and you have a mirror image trough on the west side of the ridge, which is the Abrolhos Trough. We believe in some of our drilling results and the seismic coverage does show that we've got the same geologic formations. And so we've reprocessed that seismic, done a significant amount of reinterpretation, issued updated resources, and you can see as well as those PAWs. So it's a big structure, four-way closure, large volume, and low risk. And we have a fast-track, low CapEx development, and you can speak to Cameron Manifold about halfway back, who works in our team for that, who's working on putting that together. And road ahead, partnering, completing FEED, going to FID, and in 481, securing farm-out partners. So why invest? Thank you very much.